Even more communications are coming out between Justin and Blake and the crew, their friends, everything. The Taylor Swift messages, before you ask, they have not been released yet, but I am going to read you some of the emails and texts between Justin and his team. This is from
Blake Lively once. The golden girl of Hollywood is now at the center of a storm that no one saw coming. Her perfect image shattered overnight. Her career hanging by a thread and fans asking how did it all go so wrong. Blake Lively once celebrated. As the perfect embodiment of grace, elegance, and Hollywood royalty, is now entangled in a scandal so enormous that even the most hardened industry insiders are left in shock because what began as the highly anticipated adaptation of Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel. It Ends With Us has spiraled into a war of accusations, lawsuits, and betrayal, where every day brings new revelations darker than the last. And the story has grown far beyond the walls of a film set and spilled into courts public, forums, and the very fabric of Hollywood's reputation. And it all begins with the stunning revelation that Lively herself submitted a formal complaint to the California Civil Rights Department, accusing her co-star and director Justin Baldoni of harassment, discrimination, and creating a toxic environment during the film's production. A move that sent shockwaves across the entertainment industry, because few ever expected Lively, who has cultivated a carefully polished public image, as a strong, independent woman, to take such an explosive legal step. But this is Hollywood, where nothing is ever as it seems. And almost immediately after, her filing cracks began to show, because buried documents, production logs, and leaked text messages painted a far more complicated story, one in which Lively herself appeared to have been a willing participant in the very creative decisions she would later condemn. And this contradiction is what ignited the firestorm fans who had long trusted her image of authenticity began questioning whether they had been misled, because the complaint alleged that Baldoni silenced her, stripped her of creative input, and pushed a tone that mocked and undermined the serious themes of abuse and resilience at the heart of Colleen Hoover's novel. Yet insiders rushed forward with evidence suggesting that Lively not only approved of those changes, but at times drove them, pushing for lighter moments, insisting on comedic rewrites and personally selecting high-fashion couture looks for her character. Lily Bloom choices that seemed completely at odds with the working-class background of the character, and each revelation deepened the mystery of why Lively would swear under oath that she was ignored and disrespected when production records allegedly showed the opposite. And then came the testimony of Baldoni himself, who stood firm in his defense, claiming that every creative change was made collaboratively and with Lively's full involvement. But the most shocking blow was yet to come, because Baldoni's wife stepped into the courtroom and delivered testimony that left spectators reeling. She claimed she had been present during multiple read-throughs and costume fittings where Lively laughed at jokes that would later be labeled insensitive, where she suggested lines that directly contradicted the book's emotional tone, where she admired and insisted upon designer outfits that cost thousands, and that later became symbols of Hollywood. Excess in this testimony reframed the entire scandal from one of alleged silencing to one of possible deception, with fans and critics alike wondering why Lively would recast herself as a victim if she had been shaping the very vision she now sought to destroy. And this contradiction has become the core of the battle, because on one side stands Lively, supported by a powerful PR machine that paints her as a woman crushed by an egotistical director, and on the other side stands Baldoni, with receipts, logs, and the shocking support of his wife, whose words carry the raw conviction of someone who has nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking out. And as this war rages on, it becomes clear that this is no longer just about a film. It is about the very machinery of Hollywood, about how far stars will go to protect their brand, about how narratives are spun, manipulated, and weaponized in the court of public opinion, and as fans scroll through leaks, documents, and interviews. They are left in a constant loop of confusion, outrage, and disbelief, because every time it seems the truth is clear, another bombshell drops, dragging everyone back into uncertainty. And this endless cycle of revelation and denial has created a kind of emotional addiction where no one can look away because the stakes are too high. The drama too gripping, the collapse of an icon too shocking to ignore. And what makes it all the more suffocating is the looming $400 million lawsuit that hangs over everything, because if Baldoni succeeds in proving that Lively fabricated or exaggerated her claims, not only will her reputation be destroyed, but she could also face catastrophic financial consequences that would ripple through her career, endorsements, And even her marriage to Ryan Reynolds, whose own silence in the face of the scandal has become a story of its own, because many expected him to stand publicly by his wife, yet his carefully chosen silence and occasional, vague remarks have only fueled speculation about whether even he questions the story she is selling. And the longer this drags on, the more polarized the public becomes. Some see Lively as a woman brave enough to stand against powerful men. Others see her as a manipulator willing to burn anyone, including her co-stars, in order to protect an image she cannot maintain. And the tragedy at the center of it all is that Colleen Hoover's novel A Story, that meant so much to millions, has been eclipsed by this endless cycle of scandal, until it is no longer about Lily Bloom or resilience or survival, but about lawyers' leaked files and the bloody spectacle of celebrity downfall. And in this abyss, there are no winners, because even if the court delivers a verdict, the damage has already been done. Trust has been shattered, faith in idols destroyed, and the film that was supposed to inspire has become a cautionary tale of ego, pride, and betrayal. And the more the story unfolds, the more suffocating it becomes, because each revelation drags the audience deeper into the nightmare, unable to escape. Unable to stop watching, because the collapse of a golden image is a spectacle as brutal as it is mesmerizing. And the question that remains haunting: everyone is not just who is lying, but why. The deeper we fall into this nightmare, the clearer it becomes that the story is no longer about a single film or even a single lawsuit, but about the rotten heart of Hollywood itself. Because every day brings new leaks, new whispers, new betrayals, and each one is more shocking than the last. And at the center of it all, Blake Lively, the actress once adored for her elegance and wit, is no longer the flawless star fans thought they knew, but a woman caught in a maze of contradictions, lies, and desperate attempts to hold on to an image that is slipping through her fingers like water, because her complaint to the California Civil Rights Department was supposed to be the final blow against Justin Baldoni, a declaration that he was the villain, who crushed her voice and mocked the trauma at the heart of Colleen Hoover's novel. Yet as the evidence mounted, it became impossible to ignore the haunting possibility that Lively herself may have been the architect of the very choices she swore she was forced into. And this revelation has left audiences stunned, because what does it mean when the victim may also be the aggressor? What does it mean when court transcripts and leaked emails show that she personally approved jokes that stripped away the novel's emotional gravity, when she requested wardrobe options that turned Lily Bloom from a struggling florist into a runway model, when she laughed during table reads at lines she would later denounce as harmful, and each detail twists the knife deeper, because it forces fans to confront an ugly truth about celebrity culture: that the image of authenticity we are sold is nothing more than a mask carefully crafted for profit. And behind that mask lies ambition, pride, and fear, and the darker this story grows, the more painful it becomes to watch, because Justin Baldoni, far from being destroyed, has risen like a man with nothing left to lose, wielding receipts, production notes, and most shockingly, the testimony of his own wife, whose words have shattered the illusion of silence, because she did not whisper. She did not hesitate. She stood in a courtroom and described Blake Lively as a woman who demanded control, approved choices, and later turned her back on the very decisions she had made. And this revelation sent ripples through Hollywood like an earthquake, because it is rare to see someone close to the fire step in with such conviction, risking everything for the sake of truth. And the fallout has been brutal, because now the lawsuit has grown into something monstrous: $400 million on the line, reputations dangling over the abyss, and public trust evaporating in real time. And yet the darkest twist of all is the silence of Ryan Reynolds, because his absence in the storm speaks louder than words. He, the witty, charming actor who has built an empire on humor and relatability, remains a ghost hovering at the edge of the chaos, speaking in vague riddles, refusing to stand beside his wife with unshakable support. And the silence cuts deep, because fans wonder if even he sees the cracks in her story, if even he questions the narrative she has so carefully painted. And this silence has become another weapon in the storm, fueling speculation that this is not a battle between one man and one woman, but a battle between truth and illusion, between what the industry wants us to believe and what really happened behind closed doors. And every day the public is dragged back into the cycle of revelations, court filings, leaked texts, and contradictory statements, until it feels less like a story and more like a labyrinth with no exit, where every path leads deeper into darkness, and the audience cannot stop watching, because the destruction of an idol is too mesmerizing to look away from. And so they wait breathless for the next leak, the next betrayal, The next moment, when the mask slips again and reveals another piece of the grotesque puzzle. And through it all, Colleen Hoover's novel. The beating heart of this chaos lies trampled under the weight of celebrity ego, because what was meant to inspire hope and healing has become a circus of greed, betrayal, and shattered trust. And that tragedy may be the cruelest twist of all, because the story of Lily Bloom was supposed to give voice to those who had none yet. It has been drowned out by the endless echo of Hollywood's lies as the storm intensifies and the chaos deepens the narrative around Blake. Lively Justin Baldoni and the cursed adaptation of it ends with us becomes more grotesque, more twisted, more impossible to escape. Because every new revelation feels like a dagger piercing through the carefully polished illusions of Hollywood, and fans who once adored Lively now find themselves trapped in a never-ending carousel of betrayal, disbelief, and heartbreak, because the woman they saw as a beacon of strength and authenticity now appears to be unraveling before their eyes, consumed by contradictions that refuse to fade, because for every statement she releases, another leak emerges, tearing it apart for every tearful claim of being silenced. There is a record of her voice shaping decisions for every accusation she hurls at Baldoni. There is a receipt, a message, a witness contradicting it, and the audience is left gasping, choking on the endless whiplash of truths and lies until they no longer know who to believe. And this is the genius and the horror of the spectacle, because Hollywood thrives on illusion. And now the curtain has been torn down, exposing not just Lively, not just Baldoni, but the entire machinery that profits off manipulation and deception. And in this theater of shadows, even the most innocent moments become weapons because leaked. Footage shows Lively smiling during rehearsals, joking about scenes that would later be condemned. And the smile becomes an accusation. The laughter becomes evidence. The costume fittings become proof of hypocrisy, and every detail, no matter how small, is dragged into the light, magnified, twisted, dissected, until the entire story feels like a labyrinth of mirrors where truth is impossible to grasp. And yet the public cannot stop watching because they are addicted to the downfall. The collapse of an idol is intoxicating. The shattering of a perfect image is too mesmerizing to turn away from. And the more the story spreads, the more voices join the chorus. Former crew members whispering of tension on set, stylists hinting at diva demands, assistants suggesting that Lively ruled the set with an iron grip, even as she painted herself as powerless. And suddenly the image of a silenced victim begins to fracture, replaced by the portrait of a woman desperate to maintain control, even if it means rewriting history. And as this image grows clearer, Justin Baldoni transforms from villain to survivor, a man fighting to clear his name to protect his family, to resist being destroyed by the machine, and the presence of his wife becomes a haunting counterpoint, because her testimony stands like a mountain, unshaken, unbroken. A reminder that truth can still be spoken even in the face of ruin. And her words echo through every headline, every court transcript, every fan debate, until it becomes impossible to separate the scandal from her voice. And yet the darkest twist is still Ryan Reynolds, who remains perched on the edge of the inferno. His silence louder than thunder. His absence more cutting than any statement, because the world expected him to rise to his wife's defense, to wield his charm, his wit, his fame to shield her. Yet he does not. He remains a shadow, his vague remarks interpreted, dissected, spun into theories that he too has lost faith in the story she tells. And this silence becomes unbearable because it suggests fractures not just in Hollywood's image, but in the marriage once hailed as perfect. And the speculation grows darker as tabloids whisper of strain, of distance, of late-night arguments behind closed doors. And whether true or not, the damage is done, because the public now sees their once-adored power couple as another mask, slipping, another fairy tale dissolving into dust. And as this storm rages on, the tragedy at its heart grows heavier, because Colleen Hoover's novel, meant to give voice to survivors, is now buried under rubble, forgotten, drowned in the noise of egos and lawsuits and betrayals, until the message of resilience is suffocated by the spectacle of destruction, and the audience feels trapped in a loop, desperate for closure, yet unable to look away from the carnage, because every day brings new fire, new blood, new revelations, and no one knows where it will end. And perhaps that is the cruelest hook of all, because this story has no resolution, only deeper spirals into the abyss. The storm has reached a fever pitch, and what once seemed like a scandal contained to a single film has now transformed into a monstrous spectacle, devouring careers, reputations, and even the fragile bonds of marriage because Blake Lively stands. Exposed on all sides, her image cracking her defenses, collapsing as wave after wave of evidence pours into the public arena, and the whispers of betrayal become roars of accusation, drowning out any hope she had of controlling the narrative. And the pain for fans who once adored her is unbearable because they do not recognize the woman before them. The radiant star who graced red carpets with effortless grace, now reduced to fragments of contradiction, each one more damning than the last. And the tragedy of it all is that she refuses to let go, clinging desperately to the shreds of a story that no longer holds weight, insisting she was silenced, manipulated, cornered, while the world watches as receipts leak daily, exposing emails, contracts, footage that tell a very different story. A story of a woman not silenced, but steering the ship, not forced, but choosing with ambition and control. And the cruelest twist is that every desperate attempt to salvage her reputation only feeds the fire, because her statements are picked apart, her interviews dissected, her tears ridiculed as performative, until she becomes not a victim, but the villain of her own narrative. And Justin Baldoni, once painted as a predator, now rises like a man reborn, wielding the truth like a blade, cutting through the lies, exposing the machinery that sought to ruin him. And at his side, his wife, a figure of haunting strength, whose testimony still echoes with the weight of finality, her words carving holes in the image Lively tried to build her presence, reminding everyone that beneath the glittering facade of Hollywood, there are still those willing to burn it all down for truth. And yet in this inferno, the silence of Ryan Reynolds grows heavier still, more deafening than any accusation, because the man who built his empire on loyalty, laughter, and relatability has become a phantom absent from his wife's side, as if watching the fire consume her from a distance, refusing to step in, and fans cannot stop speculating, wondering if his silence is betrayal, if his absence is proof that even he believes the mask has slipped too far, and tabloids feast on this silence, spinning stories of broken trust, whispered arguments, shattered illusions, until the power couple once envied across the globe now appears fractured, brittle, ready to collapse under the weight of scandal. And all the while the industry watches nervously because the lawsuit now threatens more than reputations. It threatens to expose the very way Hollywood operates, the lies it sells, the manipulation it thrives on, and executives scramble to distance themselves from the chaos, burying contracts, erasing names, pretending they were never involved, as if the public cannot see the rot spreading through every corner of the machine. And still the fans watch, unable to look away, addicted to the downfall, because there is something hypnotic about watching perfection crumble, something irresistible about seeing idols fall. And so they replay the footage, share the leaks, dissect the transcripts like detectives searching for truth, when in reality the truth has become impossible to find, buried beneath mountains of spin and betrayal. And the saddest part is that Colleen Hoover's story, the tender, fragile narrative meant to give voice to survivors, is now unrecognizable, trampled beneath the greed and ego of those who twisted it for fame, until the novel's message is nothing more than an echo lost in the roar of scandal. And perhaps that is the greatest tragedy of all, because instead of sparking healing, it has ignited war. Instead of inspiring, it has destroyed. And yet the loop continues. The suspense never ends, because each day brings the promise of another revelation, another betrayal, another piece of the puzzle that keeps the world glued to the spectacle, waiting breathless to see who will fall next, who will rise from the ashes, and who will be destroyed forever. And so we stand here at the edge of the wreckage with nothing left but shattered illusions, broken promises, and the ashes of what once looked like a shining Hollywood dream, because the scandal that began as whispers has grown into a roar that will not fade, and Blake Lively, once adored, once untouchable, now walks through the fire stripped of her armor, haunted by contradictions and abandoned by silence, while Justin Baldoni steadies himself not as a perfect hero, but as a man fighting to survive, a man clawing through the ruins to protect his name, his family, his truth, and beside him, his wife, a voice of steel whose words refused to bend, whose courage became the anchor in a sea of lies. And yet even here, even now, the silence of Ryan Reynolds looms like a ghost, louder than any accusation, darker than any betrayal. And the fans watch, unable to look away, unable to forget. Because this story is no longer about a film or a lawsuit. It has become a mirror reflecting the rot at the heart of fame, the cost of illusion, The destruction that comes when masks finally fall. And as the cameras fade and the headlines shift, the question lingers. Who will rise from this devastation, who will vanish into obscurity, and who will be remembered not for their art or their love, but for the scandal that consumed them forever?